Hi, I'm Judy Speer, and I'm with Small Waters Education, and along with my husband Jack, we're also member owners of Food Shed Co-op. And today I want to talk about fermenting vegetables and show you a simple way that you can do it. Fermented vegetables are delicious and very nutritious. Fermenting is a way of helping preserve your vegetables, and it also transforms them into something that's more healthy for you. One of the ways it does this is it takes the lactobacilli, which are bacteria that are already present in the vegetable, and it starts transforming them into different enzymes and vitamins and minerals and things that are more available to your body in terms of nutrition. It also, if you eat the fermented vegetables raw, then you get the extra benefits of microbes in your digestive system. And as you probably know, the balance of the diversity of microbes in your system makes for good digestion, and it also makes for a strong immune system and all kinds of great health benefits. So I grew up in a family that was Polish, and that's why I have my Polish apron on today. And when I was a kid, we could walk to the corner store and get fermented cabbage, otherwise known as sauerkraut or kapusta, right out of the barrel. And that's the barrel that it was fermented in, and we could take it home and we could eat it raw and get the benefits of all those digestive probiotics. And as I got older, that store closed up, and in the local supermarket we could still get sauerkraut, but it was in the can, you know. And it's still pretty good, but it's not live anymore, because when you put it in a can or in a jar, it gets heat processed and that kills the live microbes. So you can buy live sauerkraut now in many stores, but it's so much nicer to make it yourself, especially if you have a nice fresh cabbage. In order to make sauerkraut, I'll show you what you need. Our nice fresh cut of cabbage, cutting board, good sharp knife. Sometimes people use other tools to shred up their cabbage. Here's one of them. This is a traditional cabbage slicer. Sometimes I use that. But the knife works just great too. Here's a crock that we'll pack the cabbage into. We'll mix it with salt as we go. And you want to use sea salt or pickling salt, not iodized salt. And then you need, if you're going to use a crock like this, you'll need a plate that fits very snugly right inside the crock. And then on top of that, you'll need something to weight the plate down. The idea is you want all of the vegetables submerged under water. And then you'll need a nice clean towel to cover the top. One other thing you'll need, which I dropped, and I will wash, is something to pound down the vegetable with as you put it into your crock. This one's pretty small, but it's all I got. They make other wooden implements that have larger surface that work really well. If you don't want to make this much sauerkraut all at once, you could use a smaller vessel. You can use a jar like this, or I love to go to thrift stores and find interesting jars. The thing is that it should have straight sides. It shouldn't have a narrower opening than the sides are. And then you find another jar that fits right inside that you can weigh down your vegetable with. And if you don't want to use cabbage, you can use turnips. Some people use shredded carrots. You could throw onions in there, mix things up. I'm also going to try it for the first time with Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes, and see what that turns out to be. And I want to let you know where I got my recipe from. It's from this wonderful book called Wild Fermentation by Sandor Elix Katz. He makes the fermentation process for many different fermented foods and beverages very simple, easy to understand, and he has some great recipes in here. We have to start by weighing how much vegetable we're going to be shredding up. And as you can see, this is about 4.5 pounds. The ratio of salt to shredded vegetable is roughly, for every 5 pounds of vegetable, you use 3 tablespoons of salt. Sometimes that's a little bit too salty for me. I like to cut it down a bit. So I've got a little over 2 tablespoons of salt measured into this bowl here. So you can start by just slicing this up. And just shredding it nice and fine. The sharper the knife, the better. We've got our cabbage all shredded up. And the only part I did not shred is the core. That's the solid part in the center. It's a little bit strong tasting, so I'll leave that part out. And then now is when we start packing it in to the crock, and you layer it with the salt. So you just like put a layer of cabbage, some salt, and then take your pounding, and I'm just pounding it down to try to get the water to start coming out of the cabbage. The salt is going to also draw the water out. The idea is that the fermentation process happens in the absence of oxygen. So you need to have all of the cabbage submerged in liquid. And the liquid is going to come from the cabbage itself. And if there's any cabbage that's exposed to air, that's when the decomposition process starts happening rather than the fermentation process. So the pounding is what will bring out the water, and the salt also does that. So it's basically cabbage, salt, pound, and repeat. And this could take a little while, but it's also a good way to get out your frustrations. Just keep pounding. So I've finished pounding all of the cabbage with the salt in this crock, and look how much liquid has come out of it. It's practically to the top of the shredded cabbage. And so now what we have to do is put the plate on top, and that will help press it down even more, and put a weight. This is a jar filled with water, and see if you could see how when I press down on here, the liquid will come up to above the plate. If it doesn't do that right away, then just after a couple of hours come and push it down some more, because as the salt draws more and more liquid out of the cabbage, then it'll start to cover it up. So as I said before, the idea is to have all of the cabbage submerged in the liquid, and then you could put the cloth on top to keep any dust or insects or any other things that fly around your house out of the crock. And you'll check it every day. Oh, I wanted to mention that in case you had a little bit dry cabbage and not enough liquid comes out, if you check it the next day and the liquid is still not above the plate, then you can add a little bit of salt water. So you would take up to a cup of water, and make sure it's not chlorinated. If you have chlorine in your tap water, then you can boil it and let it cool, or just let it sit out to let the chlorine leave the water. And then put to 1 cup of water about a tablespoon of salt, and you could pour that on top to cover the rest of the cabbage. So then you'll just leave it for a few days, but every day you check it, and in a couple of days you might see some little scummy things like a film floating on top of the liquid, and so you could just take a spoon and skim that off. And if you need to wash off the plate or the your weight, if there's a film on it, then you could rinse that off and then put it back and make sure everything's submerged again. And in about 4 days you might want to taste it, see if it's sour enough for you. If not, let it sit another day, and within a week you'll have your sauerkraut. So here is some finished sauerkraut. This can be stored in the refrigerator when it's as sour as you like it, and it'll keep for a long time in the refrigerator. And when you take some out of the jar, you just make sure that the rest of it's pounded down so it's all submerged in the liquid, and it can keep for months that way. But it probably won't last that long because you'll want to eat it. One of my favorite ways of eating fresh raw sauerkraut is in a salad. You can mix it with a little shredded onion and carrot, even some apple, a little bit of sweetener if you like, and it's just delicious. I also want to show you what I'm doing with the turnips, because you can make Sauerrüben. That's the German way of saying sour roots rather than sauerkraut. Kraut is cabbage. So you can peel your turnips. I had 3 turnips. This is the last one. Each one weighs about half a pound. So for a pound and a half of turnip, I'm using about a tablespoon of salt. It's really very flexible how much salt you use. And so I just peel the turnip, shred it in my grater. If you'd like to use a food processor for this, you can. And once it's shredded, look how much moisture is already coming out of that. These are nice juicy turnips. And then you put that in your jar, sprinkle the salt on, and pound that just like you did with the cabbage. And then when that is all done, you could take your jar, this is it, filled with water as the weight, and that fits right on the inside, and that can weigh it down. I'll have to fill this up more with turnip in order for that jar to work. But also cover that with a cloth and check it every day, same as the cabbage. Skim off any moldy parts or film that floats on top, and in a few days taste that and see what you think. I hope you enjoyed this fermentation demonstration. Thanks.